Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to second session of today's discussion, which is about Sha'ban, but particularly about the 15th of Sha'ban, because tonight is the 15th of Sha'ban night. Remember, in Islam, in the Islamic calendar, in the Islamic I got confused then for a second. In the Islamic, because we don't normally go that way, do we? But hey, in the Islamic, in the day timetable, the night precedes the day. So tonight is the 15th night, and tomorrow is the 15th day. So let's summarize some of the conversations we've already had. The vast majority of narrations that I narrated to you before we went for the break declare the benefits and the virtues of 15th of Sha'ban, sometimes referred to as Shab-e-Barat, sometimes referred to as Laylatul Barat, are weak. Okay, ये जो अहादीस जो मैंने ब्रेक से पहले आपको सामने पेश किया, ये हदीस जो बारात की शब बारात के बारे में आया है, ये सब हदीस कमज़ोर है, दईफ़ है. However, since there are a number of them, there is a large number of them, then this is not a severe, इतने कमज़ोर नहीं है. तो इसकी वजह से we can say that there is some authenticity that this night is special. Okay, that this night is special. But there is no specific prescribed salah. इसमें कोई ख़ास सलाह या कोई ख़ास इबादत मनकूल नहीं है. यानी there is no specific salah, no specific ibadah that has come to us via hadith. Okay, the Prophet ﷺ used to spend a portion of every night in ibadah. The Prophet ﷺ used to spend a portion of every night in ibadah. यानी आप सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने हर रात कितने कई घंटे को इबादत कर रहा था, नमाज नवाफिल पढ़ रहा था, कुरान वगैरह, अज़कार, दुआ. तो ये नहीं कि ख़ास लैलतुल बारात या शब बारात पर, हर रात. तो हमको ऐसे आदत, we should also have this habit of doing every night. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when it mentions that Allah will descend, and this is in a manner which suits. Okay, we're not going to go into, we don't believe that Allah moves. Okay, I don't have time in the next 15 minutes to explain about Aqidah. That's another time. I have numerous videos on that on our YouTube channel. But we don't believe Allah moves. Allah is beyond movement. Okay, but the hadith mentions it, so that's the reason why I'm mentioning it. But this is on every night. Hadith mentions that on the last third of the night, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask, is there anybody asking for forgiveness? Is there anybody making? So this is every night. There is no khususiyat in visiting the Qabristan on the 15th of Sha'ban. यानी शब बारात पर खुसूसी कब्रिस्तान को जाना, वहाँ कोई दुआ करना, कोई ऐसे कुछ चीज़ मनकूल नहीं. There is nothing that has been narrated to us. The ijma is that everybody should do their own azkar and their own ibadah at home like they would do any other. ये नहीं कि that they should get together, जमा हो जाए किसी घर में या मस्जिद में, कि भाई इसलिए कि ये भी कोई मनकूल नहीं है. यानी there is nothing, no narration, कोई रिवायत नहीं है कि हमारे रसूल सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ऐसे काम किए या कोई सहाबा ऐसे किया, ताबीन या तब ताबीन. Now the 15th, fasting on the 15th of Sha'ban, there is no sahih hadith. यानी कोई सही हदीस नहीं है कि ये रोज़ा रखना, कल को रोज़ा रखना, सही हदीस है नहीं. तो इसकी वजह से हम नहीं कह सकते कि ये सुन्नत है. सुन्नत नहीं है, बहुत दईफ़ है. लेकिन आप सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ये शाबान में अगर the Prophet ﷺ used to, in the month of Sha'ban, used to fast regular, only because the Prophet ﷺ was strong, not obviously for those who are weak. इसलिए कि अगर कोई आदमी कमज़ोर है और वो शाबान में भी रोज़ा रख रहा है, तो फिर वो जो रमज़ान तक पहुंच गया तो वो तो ख़त्म है. फिर जो रमज़ान के जो रोज़े वो फ़र्ज़ है, तो फिर उनके लिए वो कमज़ोर हो जाएगी या बीमार हो जाएगी. ये जो लैलतुल बारात जो आता है, ये this name लैलतुल बारात, this only came after a while, यानी 100-200 years. इससे पहले ये नाम लैलतुल बारात, शब बारात का नाम भी नहीं आया था। बस ये लैल या अरबी में लैलतु निस्फ मिन शाबान, यानी वो रात जो आधा हिस्सा शाबान में आता है, यानी 15th। अब अभी जो रवाज है, जैसे को खाना पकाना या कोई खुसूसी खाना पकाना या बतियों को डालना वगैरह, ऐसे जो लोग करता है, ये सब बिद्दत है, उनको सबको छोड़ना पड़ेगा। So what should we do in this night? Okay, we should value this night. आज जो रात है, अभी रात शुरू हो गया, we should value this night and we turn to Allah in ibadah. But individually in your home, we have a habit that we like to get together. Then there is riyah, shosha. So if a person is doing tasbih, is making a loud Allah astaghfirullah astaghfirullah, crying, तो लोग देखेंगे कि वाह ये देख भाई, ये कितना मुत्तकी आदमी है, कितना तकवा है इसके पास, रो रहा है, तो इसमें शोशा चल रहा है। दूसरी बात ये है कि हम गपशप पर शुरू कर ले। जैसे अभी ताज़ियत के लिए हम जा रहा है, तो जब हम ताज़ियत के लिए जा रहा है तो ये ताज़ियत है या गपशप है? अभी शादी की तरह लोग हंस रहे, बातचीत चल रहा है, इतने बुलंद बुलंद आवाज़ में मस्जिद में, फिर इसके बाद खाने के लिए भी लोग बुला रहे हैं, भाई आओ खाओ। तो इसमें फ़र्क और शादी में फ़र्क क्या है भी? ताज़ियत को ऐसे होना चाहिए कि भाई कुछ ज़िक्र कर लो, मैयत के लिए कुछ दुआ कर लो, कोई कुरान पढ़ लो, ये नहीं कि बस बातचीत चल रहा है जैसे अभी ताज़ियत में है। तो whenever we get together, it just turns into gupshup, it turns into a bit of a chit-chat. And so where does the ibadah go? The ibadah disappears. There is no specific fixed ibadah for this night. Nothing. There is no mention in hadith that you should do X number of rakat, you should do this particular surah of the Quran, you should do this particular dhikr. Nothing. There is nothing that at all. On top of that, we should avoid doing any bid'ah, any innovation. So even if we do take some time out to try to remember Allah, try to recite some Quran, don't spoil it by making your own things up. That, oh, my grandfather used to do this, my dad used to do this, my chacha used to do this, my sheikh, my peer used to do this. This is about what's being described. I've shared in front of you the ahadith. And if you want to, you can search for the ahadith yourself. They're widely available on the internet. There is nothing mentioned of Layla min Nisfi Sha'ban in the Quran at all. There is no mention of it at all in the Quran. You can read the Quran yourself, go from page 1 up to page 870 وغيرها, and see if you can find one ayat that mentions this night. See if you can find anywhere where it mentions Shab Barat. See if you can find anywhere where it mentions Laylatul Barat. There's no mention of it whatsoever. Only in Chand ahadith, and those few ahadith I mentioned to you, wo sab kamzor hai, daif. So remember, in all of this, this is about us understanding what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us and what the Prophet ﷺ wants from us is to follow their practice. And that is essential. We have a call waiting, so I'm going to take this call and then we will come back to what we're talking about. So assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear caller.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you doing, my brother? You okay?
Alhamdulillah, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
The question is if we follow UK or Morocco or Africa sighting, then should that mean that the 15th of Shaban will be tomorrow evening, on Friday evening? Jazakallah khair.
Barakallah feek, jazakallah khair, and thanks for the question, brother. So our dear respected brother asked the question that if today, for example, is the 15th, the implied question was that this must be the Saudi day, and therefore the local UK sighting, which is based on UK sighting, and then in the absence of UK sighting, borrowing from the nearest Muslim country, which in this case is Morocco, is that going to be Friday night? No, at the moment, both are on the same day, and therefore today is the 15th of Sha'ban according to local sighting. So if you go to Wifaqul Ulama's website, and I'm obviously, I head up the Dar al-Ifta of Wifaqul Ulama. You will see that the 15th is tonight, and tomorrow is the 15th day, and it just depends whether we start Ramadan together. So we make dua that we start Ramadan together as well. But the UK sighting, Wifaqul Ulama, which its criteria is UK sighting, and it has what we call crescent chasers up and down this country who go to try to sight the moon. And in the absence of them coming back with a positive report or a negative report for that matter, we then stretch our borders in terms of accepting a khabar to the nearest Muslim country. The nearest Muslim country is Morocco, and therefore we go to Morocco. In fact, we all used to go by Morocco many, many years ago, way back when I was a lad. And for those of you who are my age out there will know that we didn't find out about Eid or Ramadan until about sort of 11, 12 o'clock at night. I remember, sort of being really excited and staying awake, even though Mum told us to go to sleep. We would be awake upstairs. And when it was the 29th night, she would have everything ready on the stove, on the cooker, and ready to, kick off for Eid cooking. And we'd be upstairs chit-chatting like, oh, tomorrow could be Eid, tomorrow could be Eid. And Dad would obviously be in the masjid. And then he would come back at 12, 1, and we would know even before he came upstairs that it's Eid tomorrow, because the cooking would start. So the smell of the food would come upstairs to the bedroom, so we knew, it's Eid tomorrow. But if we heard the lights go off and there was no cooking sound, then we knew, okay, tomorrow is a fast as well. Mum's going to wake us up for suhoor and soon, inshallah, and we should have been asleep a few hours ago. So everybody used to go by Morocco, and that was the delay that we used to have. And then there was a small little mishap due to a fax machine playing up or something and not getting the news until the next day because the fax paper, whatever it was, fell behind a filing cabinet or something. And then the next day somebody found it, and obviously people were keeping a fast. Yeah, it was Eid. So then they had to decide what to do, or it was the other way around, I forget now. And then basically in those sort of circumstances, there was a little bit of a panic, and then people sort of said, well, okay, we need an alternative solution. And that's when we started to get this fragmentation, and when Saudi came onto the agenda. But, the world has changed since the 80s, big time. I've changed since the 80s, big time. So therefore, it's a case of, revisiting and collectively going back to what we all agreed upon way back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, when our grandfathers or fathers arrived back in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. And obviously we've been following that up until the mid-80s. And then from the mid-80s, the Saudi solution came along. And that should have been a temporary measure. And once the, obviously, problem was resolved, which it is now, we don't even have fax machines now, we have emails. So we receive within an hour maximum of sunset from Morocco a fax. I know it's still a fax, but we get it via email as a PDF. It's not, it's a PDF kind of announcement, which we get within an hour of Moroccan sunset. And therefore we can now declare well early. The only reason there's a delay is because we have to wait for our sunset here in the UK. We cannot declare by another country when we've not had our sunset, because going to a local country is after we have exhausted all efforts in this country. So we wait for Maghrib sunset, and then we wait for the crescent chasers to get back with a positive sighting. And if we don't get anybody coming back with a positive sighting, then we say, well, okay, we've not come up with a positive sighting here. Is there a scope of a positive sighting across the shores, across the sea in Morocco? And if we get a positive sighting there, alhamdulillah, brilliant, then we can make a declaration. So that's why there's like an hour and a half delay after Maghrib, London time. For us, it's not too much of a problem up north, especially those of us up in Scotland, because the time difference between London and Bradford is about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and therefore all the way up to Scotland, it might even be like 40 minutes or something. So the Maghrib time is a lot later. So that's the sound approach. I've written extensively on this. If you search under my name, you'll find lots of information on that particular topic. I've written nearly a thesis on this whole thing, and it's an academic piece. It's not a sectarian piece. So I hope people can look at it in the unbiased way it is. Anyway, we're now coming to the end of our special program, which has been on the Laylatul min Nisfi Sha'ban, the night of the middle of Sha'ban. And I hope that I've been able to clarify the understanding of it, both in terms of the night and also in terms of whether the permissibility of fasting the day which follows the night. Till tomorrow, inshallah, I hope to see you all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.